Item B is agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for work session?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Preston, Dr. Carter, any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gilio,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mr. Charles,
Yes.
Dr. Day,
Yes.
Dr. Gupta,
Yes.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance, Dr. Day.
Please rise for the pledge.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day. The next one is chair comment, and I'll pretend to be Dr. Edwards today. I got few numbers for you. So as we go through these conversations, Doctor, it's like I'm acting to be a numbers guy today.
This is a quiz show.
So, as for the public watching us and the school board members, you can write these numbers down, and we'll talk about as we go through this and see where they're coming from. 17.7, 9.5, 5.2, 3.1, and Dr. Vodka will know where 1.9 is coming from, just so you're not eligible to take this quiz. So, watch out for these numbers, and I would say that, difficult conversations will happen, but this board is looking for everybody, and no decision will be made in haste. We'll take our time, we do all the due diligence, and then we go into a direction what is good for the whole Lynchburg City School family. So having said that, I pass on to Dr. Edwards for item E1.
Certainly. E1 is the draft 24-25 school calendar, and every year we have a wonderful committee of stakeholders, which includes parents and staff members from the various grade levels and buildings, and we have some HR folks there, some C&I folks. There's a whole list of folks that get together to propose the draft calendar. Kat Phillips has chaired this committee, I think for about 3 years now, so I'm very appreciative of her leadership. And if you know anything about the calendar, it is similar to a snow day. Nothing is perfect with it, and someone's usually not happy that we didn't get everything in there. But they did a wonderful job of meeting the needs. There was a survey that was given, so I'm going to turn it over, there's Kat to just talk a little bit about the calendar, and then we'll take any questions the board members may have.
You're on.
Yeah, so it definitely was a team effort. I don't know if,
We can hear you.
yeah. So we surveyed over 1,000 parents, and we were able to get 235 student responses and 565 staff responses. And so with our calendar, what we got from that feedback, we were able to, I'm sorry, I've got feedback here in my, in Zoom, my apologies. So we were able to come up with what the staff, parents, and students really wanted, and what they want was breaks, having consistent breaks throughout the year. The staff wanted more time together, more time for professional learning, but they also needed time to relax, time to recover, time to have those breaks. And when we listened to our secondary principals saying that they were wanting to go to a 7-period day, we were able to be kind of creative. So with this calendar is a little different than usual. It is not 180 days. It is 176 days. And with that 176 days, we are able to still get the seat hours. We're able to get the 140 per secondary course requirement. We need 140 seat hours per course. We are able to give staff those early release days where they can plan together. We can get our high schools together, our middle schools together, so they can really co-collaborate. Um, every interim period, every quarter, after every grading period, and we were able to work in a fall, a winter, and a long Thanksgiving break. So it is unusual. It's a little different, but do welcome questions about it.
Dr.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Carter.
Yes, I noticed that the days were not 180. So how does the snow or inclement weather impact this? Do we still have enough time in there just in case of that? And the other thing is, congratulations on the January. I heard a lot about starting back on January the 2nd this year. So I was happy to see those, the day 1, 2, and 3 close. That's good. But yes, so the inclement weather and how it impacts.
So some of that was just where Christmas and New Year's fall. So we're thankful for that, being able to come back at a nice time. We do have enough snow days in the calendar because we went to 7 periods instead of 8. We'll have enough seat hours with 141 hours reached in just 170 days. So those math people, Dr. Gupta, you can be a math person today too, right? And those math people will see that we actually are still exceeding the seat hours, even with these early releases. And if we end up with no days, say up until March, we do have built in there the March to 2 March days. We might have to pull back if we get a blizzard, or we can even extend some of our half days. But we have excess hours than needed, and in the state code it says 180 days or 990 instructional hours, and we're well above those requirements. Not the 180 days, but we do have at least 990 and above. So we've got snow days in there if we ever get snow.
Actually, that's the clarification I was going to ask Dr. Edwards. 990, 180 and 990 are the two numbers.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Lowry.
Hi, Kat. I just saw you today. I had 2 questions. On April 14th through 18th, it says division closed and no students, no teachers, like on the last 3 part. Can they just be combined, or is there a specific reason why it's no division and then just no?
So 12-month employees during that week get the first 2
Yeah,
days
so-
off in school, and the schools have the whole week off.
Oh, so they have to come back the last 3? Oh, I didn't know. Okay. And also, the last one was on the last week of school, the early dismissal. It's only for high school. I know elementary used to have early dismissals. Is there a reason why only high school gets it?
So in the past, the last day is a half day, but for the entire week of exams, they have 2 exams per day. So it's typically how it has been done up until this point. But the last day for elementary, they do have that early release day as well.
Okay, because in the past, elementary's got the whole last week off for half days. So I just didn't know if there was a reason why one, not the other.
We didn't have that.
Yeah, we used to have them, half days for the last week of school for elementary. I've experienced them. No, well, maybe not in the last couple
Oh,
years.
okay. I was
No,
like,
no,
ooh,
we
I'm
used to.
really-
We used to have early dismissal. I was just wondering.
Thank you.
So why, I don't even know why it stopped, but anyways. But yeah, elementary used to, because we're pretty much done. So yeah, but I get, okay, that's cool. That's what my question was.
Mr. Truss?
A question for you. In the past, I received some feedback from high school staff asking if there were any kind of, and I can't even remember the reason they asked for this, but some downtime between the last exams and the graduation day. And it may have been something to do with trying to get the grades in and making, determining who could walk or not walk or what have you. Did you have any of that feedback when you were reviewing this calendar, or setting this calendar?
So we don't have senior exams written in there, but last year it was very successful, and we can get to that point, but the seniors did finish before the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. So they were able to get those grades for seniors, get some of those seniors across the hump if they weren't able to pass their regular course. They were able to get a couple more days, and they're able to get them to graduation, maybe pass a last minute SOL. So that's hopefully something we can put in there.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Other question? Dr. Edwards, you have?
I just want for the folks who are watching and listening, for the policy that outlines the school year, school day, where Ms. Phillips is talking about the 180 teaching days and the 990 hours, that's policy IC/ID, if you want to look it up and just kind of see all of the codes and what it says about weather and things like that, for your reference.
Mr. Gilly?
I've always heard that February has quite a long stretch of work without a break, and I see now that May does too here. Is there any way you can move something up or down to put a little break the second or third week of February?
So we do have a parent-teacher conference, which is not a day off for teachers and students, but it does give a little bit of a breather. And all of the blue days on the calendars are half days or early dismissals, so that the teachers have a little bit of breathing room. We find if we plan too much of those days off, then sometimes illnesses are going to end up happening anyway. So right now we see a lot of folks that are sick. So hopefully that they can have, some of the days might be there that aren't in the calendar. We were really trying to make sure we had enough days, spread them out, but not take too many days away from the teachers. We want kids in school. We want them to be able to get food and have that time with their teachers. So, but we could try to put a day in there.
Yeah, if a day ends up being free from another month, just throw it right in February.
Other question? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Edwards.
Very nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item E2 is hearing, screening, and audiometers. Dr. Edwards.
So I am going to invite Dr. Brown up to talk a little bit about that. And while he's coming up, I just want to let the board and the public know that this first draft of the calendar was just first draft of the calendar. It will be on the February 6th board meeting for action. And one other thing is we did our best to also coordinate our winter break with the counties. That was another thing that came up because we have a lot of staff that also live in the counties. Dr. Brown.
Good evening, members of the board. It's great to be before you once again. Just have a quick resolution. As per code, we're required to do early screenings for vision and hearing for all of our students that are enrolled in LCS. And our nursing coordinator, Courtney Lang-Lois, found some very creative ways to save some money, but also provide the equipment that's needed. So audiometers are part of the important equipment that are needed to do these screenings, and ours have aged quite well, but they are at the end of their life here in LCS, and so all that we need in order to replace those is a resolution approved by our school board, and we've drafted a copy of that for you all, that would request the funding from the Department of Education, and they would reimburse us and be able to purchase all new audiometers for all of our schools and be able to make sure all of our students have what they need as far as hearing.
You're going to upgrade a lot of this equipment in that process.
Every school, yes, sir.
And there's a timeline attached, so you want board to make an action today?
That would be excellent if we could move forward with that today and start to get the new equipment in here as soon as possible.
Is there a motion to make it an action item?
I so move.
Do I need a second? Dr. Carter seconded it. Do I need a vote on this motion?
If it's a motion, it needs
Yes.
to be voted on.
Madam Clerk, any discussion on this motion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilio,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Mr. Trost,
Yes.
Dr. Day,
Yes.
Dr. Gupta,
Yes.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie.
Yes.
Motion carries.
This becomes an action item now, so it'll need a motion to approve.
I move we approve.
Dr. Dave,
Second.
Ms. Lowry, second. Any discussion on this? But the motion is to approve this item, which will be good for our students, right? You're providing
Yes, sir.
state-of-the-art audio equipment, and this money is needed and comes through state.
That's right.
Not
Any
only,
other- Go
not
ahead.
only that, but it will help with academics as well, because undiagnosed anomalies in their
100%.
physical, yeah, realm, it's just gonna be fantastic. I like it a lot.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gilio,
Yes,
Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Mr. Trost.
Yes.
Dr. Day,
Yes.
Dr. Gupta,
Yes.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Edwards.
It's the easiest thing I've done today. Thank you.
Item E3 is operating budget. Dr. Day and Dr. Edwards.
Okay. So before we get to the budget proper, I do want to communicate a couple things to the board that resulted from the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting on January 26, just to give you a heads up about some things that are coming to the board at our meeting a week from tonight. One item is that we received in the closed session some preliminary information about the PPEA for expansion of Bass Elementary. And as I said, this will come to the board for the board's consideration at the next week's meeting. Secondly, last December, at the December 5 board meeting, there was a presentation about a request to transfer funds from the contingency reserve to our instructional budget for the current fiscal year. This is not the budget we're planning on, we're discussing for the future. This is the year that's in progress now. So if you want to see that, if you go to the agenda for the December 5 board meeting under item N3, you have to click on that and you'll see a document there about a contingency reserve request. This will come to the board also next week for the board's discussion. So at this point, I want to turn to discussion of the operating budget. Actually, I'd like, Austin, if you're on the other end of the machine here, I'd like to see the other file, the FY 2025 operating budget, and I'd like to see page 5 of that, if we can.
Dr. Martin, the page you told us that we could look at it, that contingency fund, is that the one the city council is holding, or is that something different? That's the one that they're,
That's in the 1.9.
yeah,
below.
okay, that's the same one, okay.
Okay. I wanted to put this slide up first, particularly for the public's benefit, because this shows the steps in the budget process. We're currently at the third budget. I brought a pointer. We're currently at this stage. So the superintendent has given us an initial sort of budget proposal, and we are in the process of discussing that. That's what we're going to be discussing tonight. But I want to make the point that we're only in the middle of this process. Tomorrow, the superintendent will communicate to the city our preliminary request. That is not a full budget proposal, it's just a communication of our financial needs. And we'll be looking at the specifics of that in just a moment. But first, everyone should be aware that we are not at the point of making final budget decisions yet. On March 19th, the board will decide on a full budget proposal. On March 26th, there will be a joint meeting with City Council. And then after we're past the last bullet here, it comes back to the board to make a final budget decision, to formalize our final budget, which then must be approved by vote at the end of June. So I'm just trying to make clear where we are in the process right now. Okay, Austin, now we can go back to the other slide you had up a moment ago, please. So this is the slide that has all those numbers that Dr. Gupta threw at you when we opened the meeting tonight. And so I'm just going to talk, this document is just a summary of the essential financial pieces from the fuller discussion that was presented to the board on January 9th. So I'm going to be like an old-fashioned schoolman here with a wooden pointer to point at things, just to make sure you know what I'm talking about. These are all amounts in millions, okay? These are all amounts in millions. 126 million is the estimate for our current operational needs. That means how much it would cost to continue everything that's running right now. The next line, the 108.3 million, is the estimate that we have of revenue for the next fiscal year, and that's based on flat city funding, no increase from the city. The difference between those two numbers is the deficit we're facing for next year's budget, $17.7 million. Okay, now, of course, we are not allowed legally to run a deficit. Our books have to balance. So we have to find some way to close that $17.7 million gap. So this is just a summary of what was in the administration's proposal for how we might do that. The bulk of it would come from division level reductions. That's what the 9.5 is. So what the administration is offering is suggestions for a 9.5 million reduction in our budget. And these are the main pieces of that. 50 to 100 positions, including division level administrators that would be eliminated, I guess is the word to say. There's some CARES funded programs and other services that were funded pre-COVID that would be eliminated. 1 million out of the remaining 2 million in the health insurance reserve. Billing component units for health insurance. We talked about that several times in the past. There's a couple aspects of the way those units that serve the region, like Laurel, like the Governor's School, in which Lynchburg is bearing some of the costs that ought to be provided for them, both in terms of managing the health insurance, also paying for claims against health insurance that run over the amount that we receive in premiums. So we've been talking for some time about trying to ask those units to pay their fair share of that. And then an increase in employee contribution to health insurance premiums. We did some of that last year to try to balance the claims with the amount that comes in from premiums. So we're certainly closer, but there still could be some adjustment in that. Those things would total to 9.5 million. Then there's school level reductions, and we don't have a lot of details about that yet, but all the schools are being asked to come up with some reductions to their own budgets with a target of 5.2 million spread across all the schools, okay? So if we take our operational needs and subtract those two things from it, this is the balance we come up with. So that would be our reduced operational needs. Now, that's still not down to the 108 of revenue that we're expecting. So the suggestion is that we increase our ask of the city by 3.1 million, and that would essentially balance the two columns. Okay? Now, of course, there's the issue of, will the city give us that? Well, we all know that's an issue, but that's the proposal, that initially we ask for the city to give us an additional 3.1 million, and the difference between these two, that's a rounding error at the level of accuracy I've got here. All right, I'm not showing you anything lower than $100,000. All right, so those would essentially balance it. So that, in brief, is a summary of the administration's proposal of how we proceed with the budget. Now, there's a lot more to say, and so I guess we need tonight to decide on what the superintendent's going to present to the city tomorrow as our initial estimate of costs for next year. The administration's recommendation is the 42.5 million. When the finance committee met, we talked about this, and although it's not a simple matter, and different people have different points of view. I think overall consensus of the committee was that the administration should go ahead with that number and make that our initial communication to the city of what our needs for next year are. And so I think you have in front of you a document is that what this is about?
That was just to you.
That was just to me. Oh, I'm the only one that has it. I thought everyone had a copy.
You can
Okay.
circulate this around.
Well, there's nothing on it that I haven't said, but we can pass it around if people see it.
And can I just add one
Yes,
thing?
please, go ahead.
Because I made a statement that we will not make any decision in haste. The city's deadline is tomorrow, right? We have to give them a formal number of what our ask is by tomorrow, is that correct?
A preliminary.
A preliminary number, so the deadline is tomorrow. That's why you're seeing all these presentations and number being discussed, what is that? I just wanted to clarify that the deadline is,
So I don't know if there's discussion of that number, but again, we're suggesting that that be the number that gets communicated to the city as our statement of need at this point in the process. Now, I think that takes an action of the board to approve that, is that correct?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
like an action of the board, yes.
So I will make the motion that we approve using the number 42.5 million.
and there was a motion made in finance committee. It
I
was-
don't remember, did we vote
Yeah,
on
it
that in the
was.
finance committee? Okay,
It was a
so,
3-1 vote in
All right.
finance committee.
I have a
So it-
question. Can we ask questions about it?
yes.
Now or
think it
wait
needs to
till
be
the-
Now,
think it needs
now
to be-
on this, and then
Now
there's
on this.
more that I have to say, but,
Oh, well, then say what you need to finish.
okay.
You want to make a motion first and then discuss
What
that
is it?
motion, and then,
Second
since
for
there's a motion on
Well,
the
I have a
table.
number of other things to say.
Well, let's,
You want to hear it all and then come back to the motion?
oh no, we can clear the motion if you guys want.
No, she wants more,
I have a question, but I didn't know when I'm supposed to ask.
Let's do the motion and then we come back, since you already put the motion on the floor now.
so what do I do now?
That's it, there's a motion on the floor, doesn't require
Okay.
a second, it came from.
But you, if you have a question, you can ask
So
it as
now I
part of
can-
our
During the
discussion.
discussion of the motion,
Oh, the discussion. Okay.
yeah. So the motion is on the table, any discussion on the motion to ask 42.5 as a preliminary number from the city for our next year's funding. Ms. Lowry?
Okay, my question is because the city will probably want to know this broken down. What, for we as a board, what specific positions, programs, and other counties will pick up their own part on the insurance and everything, just so, if, like, for example, if I was a tax person and I'm looking at all the things that you want, and then I had to look at the itemized things, is that what we'll see, so we'll know in decision, so when the city sees it, it's being justified what they're seeing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can I respond to that? We this morning asked the administration to provide those details at our meeting a week from today. To fill out all those 5 lines here, give us specifics of what those all entail. So
Okay.
that's something that we have already asked of the
All right,
administration.
and for the school level reductions, will we hear from the principals or see what they, per school that they want?
I think at that
reduced or-
point, we will get a status report, we'll get a report of whatever information we have at that point. It may take them some time to
Okay.
come up with that. They may
So
need to talk to their people.
The city doesn't need that then?
No,
Go ahead.
so just from a process standpoint, because if you remember when Dr. Wodeka explained the process, we're working on our budget, the city is working on theirs. So it's typical for the city manager to say, give us a ballpark number about where you think you're
Okay.
going to be. That's not where we land. It's we have never landed where we start, but it really is to allow the city staff to start their work as well. So that's what we're doing right now. The next several weeks up until March 19th, when the board votes, and then, of course, on the 26th, as a board, you guys will go through all the details and
Okay.
make the final.
I wasn't sure if the city needed that, or if it was just, okay, cool.
We
And what
had
if the city-
but agenda prep meeting this morning, me, Dr. Day, and Dr. Edwards. And there was a discussion that we need to have a deeper dive into each of these. So public knows, the board knows, and the students and faculty and staff knows that what each of these entail is the word I was using again and again this morning. We agreed that will be the process. This is only January, and we will not run through a high-speed train.
Oh,
You
no,
have to-
no, no.
You
I was
gotta
just
take a
saying-
deeper dive into all those, as, I know what
Yeah.
you're saying is, if all these schools, ancillary units, you're going to disjoint them, what's the financial impact on them?
Well, and also, when you brought up, it was due tomorrow to the city council, I'm like, what do they need to see? Have we not seen it yet? And, you know, those kind of things, so, good, we're good.
The rough numbers, so they know in ballpark, we need about $42.5 million.
Okay.
Last year was 39 with 1.9 in contingency and 37 in our operating, roughly.
That's what they gave us. Last year, what we requested, what we needed was 47 last year.
So this is part of the process. We give them, here's what we think we need. They come back and say, well, and we take that and revise things, and it goes back and forth until we, by the end of the June, have to nail it down.
Dr. Carter?
Yeah, it concerns me that we're asking for 42.5 million, because that's what we have to need. That's what we have to have to bring those two columns together. And as Dr. Edwards just said, last year we asked for a certain amount and we were given $7,000, $7 billion less. So now we're gonna ask for 3.1, and more than likely, they're not going to do that. So do we need our ask to be what it really should be? Not the 17.7, I know that's not, but at least something that will get us near this, the 42.5 that we need after they look at it and whittle it away. And hopefully the ones that did this town hall meetings and all will make sure that we get this 42.1.
I'm not understanding.
Well, I'm saying is, we're asking for what we definitely, desperately need, so we
Yeah.
have to have.
Yeah, so
Should
you,
we not ask for what we actually need? So I'm looking at 9.5 million. That's gonna be people's positions, and I know about the CARES, and I know people should have been told, and probably were told, that they had CARES funding positions and that money would run out, but even with that, sometimes you forget. But we're looking at 50 to 100 positions. And other components, like Laurel's, their budgets are tight and they're gonna be asking questions. So can we look at a number where it will, if we started this number, 42.5, and we're saying that's what we want, we know we're not gonna get 42.5 if we start there.
Dr. Carter is 100% correct. We should have line items that are wishes, that are wants, and ask for the whole thing at once. And if they push back, we'll have something to cut away that aren't essential. You can also put numbers forth to save 50 positions, let's say. And the ask would be the 3.1 million plus 50 positions. So you can present something that has your ideal minus 50 positions, and also, so my other question would be, does this ask of the 3.1 million save the virtual academy?
no.
No. So you want to add it, if you want to save the virtual academy or have the potential of saving the virtual academy, you make it 4.1 million. You at least give it a prospect of a chance for that to happen. Same thing with the 50 positions. Same thing with any of the other components that you want. You have to have something, some cushion there. For instance, what if we all wanted to have 1,000 to 5,000 stipend because we don't have enough for even a business card right now? You put that into the budget, offer it, and then they push back, and then that's one of the first or second things that you cut off and say, okay, how about this number? And maybe you can save 25 to 50 positions. How about this number? Maybe you can save the virtual academy. And then this is your absolute base that they don't even see at the first. It's just one of the options that you cut back to. I would recommend that.
Our informal communication started with a baseline budget. So this is 3.1 million more than what the base for last year was. So it's already more than, but nothing stopping. The point is, we should not be raising false expectations for any of our stakeholders in terms of what they can and they could get. You see what I'm saying? And having all kinds of cushions is perfectly fine, but we don't have the revenue authority. The school board doesn't. We depend on city council to appropriate that. What do you think, Dr. Edwards?
Certainly, I mean, if you look at previous budgets, they have been in the lines of what we need to just move to the next level, and not with excess or anything like that. It was, especially last year, doing 1547, what we needed to do that 5% followed by a 5% and 2% increase over those 2 years was upwards to the 47. We didn't get it, so we still wanted to make sure that our staff were paid. So we moved some folks who were in operating for a very long time into the CARES budget. We have to move them back. Those positions weren't created as a result of the pandemic. They were shifted to that funding level as a result of having to do the 12% average raise, and this board being committed to doing that. One of the options we did propose was to not do that last year, like just go with the bare minimum, ditch 1547, 1550. And the board, and as I will defend my staff, was committed to giving those raises. So this proposal that we have, and I think early Dr. Bodica outlined one of our first priorities was to put the people back, right? The people who are always in operating, put them back in operating. And then after that, look at what the needs are, and if we have to cut to try to get to a reasonable number, which is what we did. We proposed some cuts to get to the 40, back up to the 42.5, which is our 2018 funding. That's what we did. But if you ask me what I would like to do, I would absolutely love to see staff move up on the salary scale and get an increase, even if it's a small one, along with the bonus. But I'm also faced with the reality of here is where we are. And that's why we're working as a team to come up with that.
Is there a substitute motion you'd like to propose?
I would definitely like to not negotiate against ourselves by bringing forth the base level before we even get to them. So I think that the end of what Dr. Edwards said is fine. I think that if we ask her what she would like to save some of these dollars to give an increase in salary, that would be great. If we could try to save the virtual academy, that'd be great. I don't know what else we would be losing, because it's not detailed yet, but some of those positions as well. I think that my first suggestion is a good idea so that we don't negotiate against ourselves and negate the possibility of having freedom. Dr. Day, you said that we're not allowed to have a deficit. Are we allowed to have a surplus?
We return it to the city at the end of the year if we do.
Okay,
So
that should be part of the proposal. If there's anything left over where we find that we do not need this money that we've asked for, we'll return it to the city at the end of the year. There's nothing wrong with that.
Dr. Carter?
And during the pandemic, I know we put a lot of money into our CIP plan, that we funded that in the amount of millions of dollars. So now I think they can see that we really desperately need these funds. And Dr. Edwards made this apparent several years ago, exactly how much money we will need once those funds ran out. And so this 3.1, this is what we desperately need. So we don't have any wiggle room. So, and I really do like that virtual academy and think that's awesome. And as I said, if it was available when I was younger, I would have been right there in that. But, so I'm not a fan of asking just for the 42.5.
I agree.
Dr. Day?
So, think what we have here is just a difference in what you might call bargaining philosophy. Do you ask for everything that you want? Or do you pay attention to your estimate of what the other side, if I can put it that way, has indicated? We do have informal communications from the city administration that anything above flat funding is not going to be considered. Those were spoken to us at couple of the leadership meetings that we have every so often with the mayor and vice mayor. More than once, they told us, don't expect anything more than flat funding. Now, given that we've been told that informally, is it foolish to ignore that and ask for an exorbitant amount above that? Does that make us appear foolish, not paying attention to the reality of the situation? I think there's others on the board that would have us not ask for anything above flat funding. So, as I said, this is a difference in strategy.
Dr. Carter?
And I'm gonna borrow, Mr. Jalil's term. He said, don't bargain against yourself. Is that what you said? Yes. And the other thing is that those 50 to 100 positions, they're voters.
I'm asking for a counter motion. Is there a counter motion to $42.5 million of ask from the city? There's a substitute motion.
Can I ask a question? What
Need more.
would be your number that you're thinking of?
I'm not gonna just grab a number out of the, so I
But we
don't.
need a number by
So
tomorrow.
I'm not going against what you're saying, I'm just doing math.
Right.
And so if I hear you, you want to say the Restore Virtual Academy, I imagine you want to absorb those classroom teachers. This is called CARES money. That's 61 positions, that's 46.9. That's about $3.4 million over what we're already asking. I don't know. That's tough.
Well,
Mrs. Jalil?
at the very least, you have to know those numbers. So if you do the calculation, saving 25 to 50 positions, then you have something to offer if they push back. What is the number that number of positions save? What is the amount that number of positions saves? That's first. And is there anything else that we can actually ask for them that will equal the importance of the things that they would consider flatline
Funding.
to us? And another thing is, if you look at almost any employer, no employer is incentivized to give a new employee or one with a lot of experience the maximum amount. Usually there's a range, whether it's 60 to 90,000 a year, 90 to 120, 120 to 150. That's the range given, and the incentive is for the hiring agent to have that new employee get the lowest amount as possible. And that's the inclination, that's where they start at. And it's up to the employee to negotiate all the way up to 150. It's on them to do that. So it may be just the nature of things to offer the least. And those who win the most put forth the effort. So that's how I think about it.
Well, she still needs a number by
Yes.
tomorrow, though.
Still needs a number.
I'm looking for a substitute motion.
Okay, so 1,000, so let's say that for one thing, a side item, $1,000 each would be $9,000. You can add that. If you want to make it 5, it's 45,000. That's one thing. That's one line item you can add to it. Another thing is saving 25 positions. So 25 positions times 47,000. How much is that?
Do
Is
we,
there a number to that?
do
Is
we have an estimate
1.175
for
million.
that first line
First
there
line, 50
of-
to 100?
of how much savings is involved? I mean, we'll have that next week, but is that number known at this point in time?
I'm gonna look
I don't
to,
know.
while I'm sure Dr. Wodeca's over there calculating away, of course, you know, it sort of varies in terms of just the types of positions. So if we take, and I'm gonna kind of ballpark it with salaries and benefits. In some cases, you're looking at like $70,000 for some downtown central office positions. Obviously, some are higher if you move up into that range, and you're looking at maybe $103,000 and $121,000 per. That's with salaries and benefits, because you're factoring in the benefits when you do that. So when we're looking at it, we're looking at a combination, which, you know, if I take this person here, then I can't take that person, because now I've got to balance out the department, so that might be one salary versus another. But if I take this person, then there are just choices that cause that.
Does that 50 to 100 take into consideration the benefits?
Yes, those were the number, when we were kind of estimating numbers depending upon.
So if we split the difference between 70,000 and 100,000 per person, that would be 85,000 per person is an extremely rough estimate. And how many of those positions are you asking that we restore funding for?
I think you should know the number for 25 to 50 of those positions.
Let's be specific, not 25 to 50. Give me one number. How many?
So a quarter, at least a quarter, is 25.
So 25. So what is 85,000 times 25 that would be 2,125,000. So I'm going to call that 2.1 million. So that's your suggestion for how much we add for those positions. And you were suggesting adding other amounts for other things.
Dr. Whitaker, is the virtual academy exactly $1 million, give or take?
It's about 1.7.
No, it's 1.6, yeah.
1 point, okay.
1 point what?
1.6.
7? 1.7?
What, LCS Restore?
LCS Restore is 1.2-ish.
And that's on top of the virtual academy, right? Okay.
1.2.
So, yep. So the last two numbers here are 1.7 for virtual academy and 1.2 for LCS Restore, which we agreed last time, which is very important.
And then plus 2.1. So that gives us 5 million. So you want to increase our ask by 5 million.
Yes.
So
There is substitute motion on the floor.
do you want to
She
make,
has a question.
Dr. Carter.
Did that include the restore?
Yes, it
Yes.
does.
Okay, great.
so do you want to make a motion?
I motion to add these items to,
Not the, I need
A number.
a number.
3.1 plus 5 is
8.
8.1.
So that's,
Speaking for him, his motion is that we add we make our request to the city flat funding plus 8.1 million.
that'll be 47.5 because 3.1 was 42.5 plus
39.4 plus 8.1 is 37 point,
No.
40. I have a PhD in math, but I can't do arithmetic.
You need a stick.
47.1.
What is your substitute motion?
My substitute motion is to make the ask for 8.1 million instead of,
Not ask
No,
is the total number.
47.1. You're
the
trying
total.
to increase, you're trying to add an additional 8.1 to that.
so 47.5? Is that what that comes up to?
47.5.
All right. I motion to approve the ask of 47.5 million.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. Any discussion on the substitute motion?
I think it's asking too much.
What are we,
Can we just break it down one more time?
what are we saving?
It's too, so
Just for the public to understand exactly how we arrived at that number of the ask. So we have,
I didn't include the 3.1. We just added the his new items to The 8.1 was his 3 new items. We need to add to that the 3.1 that's already up there, so it becomes 50.6.
No, that's already included, right, Dr. Gupta?
Did you add that to 42.5?
I took
You took flat line,
I
baseline.
took
Oh, you took the
39.4 and added 8.1. I did not add the 3.1.
So,
Here's the arithmetic, 39.4,
Which is, and just for public to understand what that number is,
8.1 is plus
that's flatline funding.
3.1.
that's baseline funding from last year, flat line.
3.1 that was recommended from here, and Mr. Jalil is suggesting an additional 8.1.
Dr. Dave, what does that 8.1 constitute? Could you please break it up?
2.1 million for approximately 25 of these positions. So we're going to try to save 25 of those positions. At least this is his proposal.
Yeah.
1.7 for the restore.
The virtual academy.
Virtual,
I thought the virtual was 1.2.
that's
Okay, so the virtual is 1.7 and Lynchburg Restore is 1.2. So we've got 39.4. I'll put all the numbers down. 39.4 plus 3.1 plus 2.1 plus 1.7 plus 1.2.
What does it add up to?
Wait, go back. So what's the other numbers at the end, the 2.1? Are you adding those again?
2.1 is these new positions. We're trying to save 25 of those.
Okay.
That's 2.1.
So start that formula again, please. So the 2.1 is the new positions. Just go down.
Restoring 25 of
Okay.
those. The 1.7 is the virtual academy.
Okay.
The 1.2 is Lynchburg Restore. The 3.1 is this. It's
Okay.
already built into these numbers. We need to add all of those to last year's ask.
And how much is the total?
Let's do it again. I think it's 50.6, but I'll calculate it again to be sure.
It's 8.1 for all of those.
Yeah, it was 8.1 for the 3 new things, right? And then we added,
Not for the 3 new things.
No, for the
Oh, for
total.
everything.
For the total.
okay, I'm gonna start over. 39
This is
Point
live TV, so
4
have
plus
patience with us.
3.1 plus 2.1
Nothing is scripted here, so.
plus 1.7 plus 1.2 equals 47.5.
Right.
So your motion is 47.5?
I'm not sure that's
No,
right.
I think I forgot the,
I think I did it wrong, too.
I got a question. Can I-
Yeah, go ahead and ask your question while I'm recalculating.
Either Dr. Edwards or Walter. So, Dr. Day just said virtual is 1.7, but in your slide on page 8, it's got 1.5. That includes salaries and benefits. So where did the 1.7 come from if it's really 1.5?
It's 1.7.
It is 1.7 for.
They
rounded
So
up.
getting 40.
Sorry?
1.6.
let me do it
The
this
1.7 is the.
49. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, 39 plus 8. I'm just doing.
Yeah, you're doing it as a human would do it.
Not a robot.
You gotta use ChatGPT, man.
I'm afraid of that stuff.
Dr. Edwards, are any of these the 50 to 100 positions underneath that funding that's special? I don't recall the name of it, but it's SOQ.
That's okay.
No.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
2.1.
I have a question, Dr. Edwards. On this that we're submitting, I don't see, I see instruction and then administration, attendance, and health. Goes on to pupil transportation, operations, maintenance, food, facilities, technology. Where are staff and students? Where do they fit in the
40,
category?
that looks like a right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, they're in.
47.5.
Okay.
They're bus
Yeah.
drivers under people
Yeah,
transportation.
47.5.
Those are the
includes
categories
the
that the city assigned us.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha. For that flat
That sounds
funding.
like number,
When they
because
did categorical funding.
Okay,
4,
gotcha. All right.
so the total adds up to 47.5. Is a substitute motion for 47.5, or do we need to amend that?
Well, I'm going to bring this up. Last time, everyone I've talked to do not like that this board does not have any stipend for any reason. at all. So whether it's,
That's a different discussion for when we go into the deeper details of the budget items.
fair enough. fair-
Right now, we are asking for a number to give it to the city, which is a bigger number, and then we can trickle it down to what needs to be in and what needs to be out. Dr. Day?
Also, it's a matter of board policy. Our stipend is set by a board policy, so to change that, we have to go through a policy
Separate,
revision. And we did that last year. As part of our budget process last year, we removed the stipend that existed formerly.
What is there a substitute motion on the floor, and what is the number?
So I'll make this, I'd like to amend the substitute motion to change the number to 47.5.
What was the original number in the substitute motion?
The substitute motion was 47.5.
That's 47.5.
Okay, all right, then I withdraw
So
my
that stands.
motion
Is
to
that
amend.
motion, is there
That- so
second to
that's
that
the
motion?
motion on the table.
Any more discussion on the substitute motion?
Just for the public again, the 3.1, which is part of that 47.5 substitute motion number, just explain to us what the $3.1 million figure, where it came from.
That was to balance this column with that column. We needed to get that number up to something close to that number.
And generically, where did that number come from? And then maybe Dr. Edwards more, is that, I mean, that number came from, I know I understand the balance part, but is there actually
Like,
something
did
that's
it-
concrete?
I think what you're saying is like, did it come, or is that our wish list? Is that 3.1 million our
No,
wish?
there's no
Is it
items
inflation,
associated with that.
is it inflation-driven items? Okay.
No, so if you look at the way that this is outlined, this year's process started with what do we have right now and what level funding, assuming we also got the contingency, what would that look like, and then what's the deficit? And then we were charged with kind of close the gap for the deficit. So we started with the division elimination of various things. Things in CARES definitely weren't going to roll over into the operating budget. This is also inclusive of some operating budget eliminations to kind of close that gap. And then we got to about $9.12 million just doing that, and we still had the deficit gap. So then we looked at what could we do again, trying not to touch the schools as much as possible. That's when we came up with perhaps the schools individually, collectively could take a 5% reduction. And we didn't say where or what, we just did numerically, and we would meet with individual building principals to talk about their schools, and then that got us down to there, and then we were just like, any additional cuts right now, we won't even be able to function. So to make the maximum number of cuts to close the gap, we needed to add 3.1 million just to get, it's kind of what Mrs. Carter's saying, we're at bare minimum. And remember, just for the board and the public, these cuts are new cuts on top of cuts we made last year and the year before. So that's what I'm saying, we're somewhat running out of cuts to get down to.
So I got a simple question then. I guess a 3.1 is irrelevant then, right? Because if you're saying 25 positions, virtual academy, restore, we just added 3.1 just to kind of balance that.
She didn't add it.
Did not.
May I?
Right, okay.
Give it a try. Basically, what happened was Dr. Edwards came in with the current operational needs, and that's at the very top. And when we pushed back on that, because we're assuming level, some of us assume level funding, she knocked it down with those 9.5, and then knocked it down with a number that she anticipates across the school board, the principals and assistant principals are going to be able to come up with that 5.2. That brings us down to a bare minimum in what Dr. Edwards is proposing, and that is $3.1 million higher than level funding.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
now,
So that's the way I saw it, and that's the way I understood it.
That's the way I understand it. I mean, that's so,
So it wasn't added.
right, and level funding is not even, quite frankly, it's not an option.
No.
And I just want to make sure everybody understands that. It's not, that is not an option, period. Because Dr. Edwards has already come to this board with the most skeleton, there's no meat on the bone, and we still need $3.1 million to operate our schools. And there's no meat on the bone there. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that level funding is not an option.
So Mr. Jalil and then Ms. Carter.
We are adding LCS Restore, in this proposition, adding LCS Restore and adding the virtual academy. But the 25 positions saved takes away from the 9.5 million, does it not? Which means that there may be a change with the 3.1.
Of course, that's why this is a ballpark. It's a ballpark start, is what Dr. Edwards is proposing.
Dr. Carter?
And just to be clear, some of these positions in CARES, they are really necessary to students' mental health and also to some of the operating functions of the schools, like the testers and different things like that. If not, someone else, although they may have received a little extra money, now they're gonna have to go back to doing triple duties. And that is really burdensome. But a lot of these positions really have helped students in their mental health.
So we had original motion for how much, 42.5? There's a substitute motion in place for $47.5 million ask.
That's right.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on substitute motion?
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Mr. Trost?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
No.
Dr. Gupta?
No.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
No.
Ms. Laurie?
No.
It's 5-4. Motion carries.
So our ask from the city now will be $47.5 million. The motion carries 5-4.
5-4.
Okay.
So we'll change the document.
Yeah, we'll change the document. Now, I'm not done with my remarks yet.
Go ahead.
Okay. At our next meeting, a week from tonight, there will be the opportunity for public comment, as there always is at board meetings, and the board will continue to discuss the budget. All we're doing here is deciding how much our initial statement to the city is about what our needs are. We, as a board, need to be clear with the superintendent what information we want to be provided and in what form. In the past, different boards have wanted to see different things, and even now, different board members may want different pieces of information. The administration needs clear guidance on what information this board wants to see. So, board members, if there is specific information you think should be provided, please communicate that to the chair and myself. It will be our responsibility to communicate that to the superintendent as a request from the board, not from individual board members. We can't hold the administration responsible for something that they were never asked for. And if you ask for something of the chair and vice chair, and we, for whatever reason, do not make that request to the superintendent, it will be the board leadership that is accountable for that, not the superintendent. Now, we've already asked that for our next meeting, we get details of those things. Now, in this discussion tonight, we've already seen the need for that. It would have helped to have had that tonight, but we don't. Now, the last thing I need to say is that the Facilities and Finance Committee, at its meeting on last Friday, also expressed some caution about delving into the specifics of budget reductions too soon, lest we generate unnecessary fear over things that have not yet been decided. So I find myself in an awkward position because I feel I am obligated to report to the board what the Facilities and Finance Committee said, and yet we are already taking action, which in my mind is different from that. I don't think we're doing the wrong thing, but I'm trying to make it clear that I'm trying to be honest and fulfill my responsibility to the Facilities and Finance Committee in communicating what their discussion was to the full board. Now, at this point, that's the end of my long remarks. I think the floor remains open if there's additional discussion about the
Dr.
budget.
Edwards, you have anything to add?
I think I'll defer
Dr.
to board
Carter?
members first.
Dr. Day, just clarification, what's the conflict that you feel? that you-
The Facilities and Finance Committee was concerned about putting too much detail about what those things mean. For instance, listing all the positions that are on the table might generate a lot of fear that's unwarranted. Already tonight, we've changed the number we're talking about there. So the concern is that putting that information out too soon might make a lot of people fearful before there's really something to be concerned about. But we have gone ahead and asked for at least some level of specificity about those things.
Ms. Lowry?
And my only thing is that so much of it was covered by CARES, and we've been told we have to cut. I just have this slight fear that city council is just not going to approve it.
You know, I'm going to say something. Want and desires is one thing, and the reality is different. I like to have a beachfront home, nice fancy car, and a helicopter to take me anywhere I want to. But I cannot even afford the socks in my shoes. That's the reality. I gotta live with that. So we can sit here and ask for anything under the sky we want. At the end of the day, this year, Dr. Edwards and I have to go and defend our number to the city council. And we know the realities of the budget across the street. We know where they stand unless things change on the revenue side for them. Those are the facts. So, but this board voted to ask for 47.5. That's what we'll present to the city council, to the city manager's office, right? And let them say what they have to say. Mr. Jalil.
Sounds good. So now that we've decided, let's wholeheartedly vie for that. Let's go after the LCS Restore. Let's go after those positions. Let's go after the virtual academy and say, these are the things that we desire. These are the things that we need and that the people have asked for. There's nothing wrong with that.
What you're saying is not go for them to bring them in, right? Keep them in.
Go after in what way?
Advocate. He's saying
Yeah,
advocate
advocate,
for those
Okay.
positions and advocate.
Personally, for me as an individual school board member, nothing is out, right? We are not after anybody. But we have to be realistic in the budget process. I've been in this board for a long time, and each year, last year we asked for 1550. We had a deficit of $5.6 million to achieve that. And even everything settled, we were still down by $4 million. And this board decided to backfill that using coronavirus money, because it was important for this board to do at least 1547. That's what happened. But this year, that luxury of backfill is not there. The chickens are coming home to roost. We got to backfill all those through our operating budget now. So those credit card charges, which we have done over the years, are coming back for the paying bills time. Dr. Day.
I just want to say that I don't want anyone to think that because of the particular items that the administration proposed as things that we might be able to forego for the sake of balancing the budget. I don't want anyone to think that means that those items are deemed unimportant. Take the Restorative Academy in particular. I don't think anybody is saying that that's not important, or we don't appreciate the hard work that goes into that. None of this is a value judgment. It's purely driven by financial realities.
Yeah.
Our back is against the wall. We have to do something. And we may yet, depending on what city council does, be forced to come back to these, and perhaps more if they insist on staying with level funding. We will have to come up with another 3.1 million somewhere.
Why would you say that they have to come up with level funding?
If they tell us, no, we're only giving you 39.4.
But there has to be a reason for that. And I
They
think
don't have to
that's
give us a reason.
what, I guess in the virtual sense of, because, you know, we're not bigger than they are, so they don't have to give us a reason. But they are people that are elected by the people in this community. They are people that need to be concerned about the students that we are producing.
So
who
you're
will be
saying they
citizens
should,
of this.
they should approve
And-
it.
But I think that needs to be pointed out. Let's not just make the assumption that because you sit in a big chair that you make all the decisions. The truth of the matter is, all of us have a responsibility to do what is right, what's feasible, and what's best for the people in our community. And somebody needs to point that out to us if, in fact, we forget it.
I don't disagree with any of that.
And LCS Restore has been proven as one of the most important parts of LCS. It's one of our best features. Other things have been said to be that as well, but that's a key thing that we've got to emphasize.
But we have to emphasize that, so that people understand this is not just, we just want this restorative academy. We don't just want it, we need it, and our community needs it. Because our choices are, we can either do battle with these kids today and get them on the correct path, or we can do battle with them later on when they really are on the wrong path. That's simple.
Yeah, and remember how we talked about their behavior in one class is repeated in other classes. So when you take them out to the restorative academy, you're not just helping one kid in one class, but you're helping a multitude of students.
And you're helping the city ultimately, because those same kids are gonna be the same people that we have to deal with in our society. I don't know, I'll get off my soapbox.
Let's not have it
My-
this way.
Well, my question for this whole city council piece you have to turn in tomorrow, when do we get to speak to city council to advocate for what our numbers are and why?
Any of their meetings, and we
anytime.
have a joint meeting with them.
That's in March.
March 29th.
You
So
can write
we-
to them, you can call them.
Can we join you?
So the joint meeting.
It's a
is
joint
forever.
meeting.
Well, it's a joint
Our board and
meeting
the
is
city
in,
council.
no, tomorrow is.
Can we join you tomorrow?
No, it's just a letter
Oh,
that
it's
goes
just a
tomorrow.
letter.
It's a letter.
It's more of a, you know, codify that there was a request so that they have something in writing that says this is what the ballpark is. And I'm copy all of you on my letter too, so we all are operating from the same thing. And you can always reach out, call, talk to them individually, as well. I mean, that's.
Okay.
Dr. Carter, good.
And just ask all the parents and students that are in the Restore or that know the importance of that in the virtual academy and that are part of these different items to call and write, and advocate, yes.
The first line of battle is our operating budget was 37. 1.9 were put in contingency line. So that's not even in our operating. So
Right.
the baseline, when you say 39, it's not truly 39. It was 37. And the rest was in the contingency line. So first line of battle is to move that contingency line into the regular operating line in this forthcoming year. That's number one. Then anything on top of that. So, because the real operating line was how much, 37 point, how much was that word?
Right about 37.
37, so, and the other 1.9 was in the contingency line. So, there's just a lot more steps in that process involved, Dr. Carter.
And just to think about that, when I came on the board almost 9 years ago, it was way higher. And you would think with inflation and the cost of everything, that we wouldn't even be considering. I would never have thought we would be looking at 37 million when, or what they're giving us, or the baseline after those years.
I, for one, would like to have $17 an hour for our hourly wage workers. That $1.9 million number you saw was the cost Dr. Whitaker told the finance and facilities will cost us to give a $2 increase. And we talked about that, but that's almost a $2 million ask on top of what we have. So this budget, you gotta pay people at par, but plus on top of that, the inflationary pressures are affecting their day-to-day lives. Those are also the realities of life. But the other reality of life is we are not revenue generators. We're dependent on city to give us the money. Mr. Jalil.
I'm forgetting one thing that, as you do your negotiation later on, if you could add this into there, but the food services and nutrition is so important. If there's just a few things you can do to impact all the students, changing curriculum, changing this, one of the main things you can do is to increase the health of the food, the quality of the food, and the food services budget. All the students who eat at LCS do so out of a budget of approximately $4.50 or so that food services has to pay for everything, the employees, the food, all the services, everything. And if that can be increased, that will almost revolutionize a lot of behavior and the health of the students. It doesn't seem like it, but it's a very important part of improving academic performance in students across the board. I'm just bringing that up, not now, just something that I thought of for the future.
But at the beginning of the year, remember, the school system got a new food thing, right? And there's a new company they're working with. Yeah, so that's already been taken care of, the quality of the food.
It's not even close to being taken care of, but I understand that.
Yeah, well, I'll just say that's something they've already changed.
Yeah, well, having a chef is a good idea, that's for sure. And having, but the budget I'm talking about, increasing that dollar per student that they're able to use. For instance, $1.35 or so, which is 65, is what actually goes to a particular meal. So if you want a quality meal, that's a $5 meal that you could get at a restaurant, you have to increase that budget. You have to increase that part of it. And that's what I was talking about.
Dr. Day, you want to say something? You were saying you had your hand up.
No, I don't have anything else to say.
He's just eating his potato chip.
All right, any more discussion before we move on to the next item? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. Let me see the agenda, next item. No school policy discussion, so school board meeting is on February 6th at 5 PM. Discipline committee data review is February 8th at 3:30. Finance and facilities is February 13th at 3:30. School board work session is February 20th at 5 PM. Ad hoc discipline policy review committee is February 22nd at 3:30. LACRA is February 27th at 3:30. Southern Regional Meeting of VSBA, is that VSBA? March 13th, 2024. Public budget hearing, which is important, March 19th, between 5 and 6 PM here in the boardroom. And the Joint City Council School Board Budget Meeting is at 4 PM, on March 26th.
Mr. Reed has a question.
Dr. Edwards.
We would be remiss because it is Mr. Sorensen's last night, and I know you're about to adjourn, but before we get to adjourn, we have a special gift.
Hold on, Dr. Carter had some thought, you want to
During the Southern Regional Meeting, we really would like to take artwork from here for the,
okay.
so how we need to.
I have, I'm working on that with the art teachers across the city.
Okay.
So we've been communicating and they're working on that.
Thank you.
And Dr. Brown and I are going to be part of the presenting at Southern Regional. Okay, all right. Yes.
Or you want him to come here, you want, we go all.
I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Woodica, who has been so patient.
Thank you so much. About 6 months ago, we found ourselves in a position of needing a CFO for a short period of time. That's when Chris Sorensen came into our lives. Chris, I don't know how well you've gotten to know him, but Chris is a very experienced financial professional from a number of school divisions in Virginia, as well as the VDOE, and really in his time here has just done a tremendous job helping us get our information and data correct, making sure that the department is running correctly, putting us in a position, even though a lot of the information that we have is not information that we want to see, but we feel really strongly that it's accurate, and I think that's a really good place for the school division to be in. I have learned a tremendous amount from you, Chris. I know others have as well. Just really enjoyed working with you. We got you a little gift on behalf of the senior leadership team. So if you open it and feel like it's cheap, we're being fiscally responsible. But I'll say, so our 2 high schools sent over some nice jackets for you to wear when you're out camping. We'll bring it with you. And then we got you a nice gift card to take your wife to dinner.
Okay.
Because, you spend too much time with me rather than her. So we appreciate you.
Well, that's very nice. It's certainly unnecessary, but thank you. It's been great working here. The staff's been great, very helpful, very accommodating. I told them the other day, it's like, you knew it was a short timer, you didn't have to treat me with respect and be nice. But they always did and they always were, and I really appreciate it's a great staff here. And certainly appreciate the confidence that Dr. Bodick and Dr. Edwards have put in me, so.
Well,
So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just, well, we have you on speed dial. I have to say. We are very appreciative of the work that you have done with us, and there were some hard realities that I'm so glad that you had the courage to just manage up, show us what we need to see, and get us on the right track. And we are grateful to have Miss Jamie's here with us to take the reins, and the 2 of you have worked well together. So we are moving forward and with our vision, and we are just really excited about where we are. I'm still on a high from Wednesday night where we presented and State of LCS, which I actually printed the updated version of this, was just on our website. So I just want to say thank you for getting us to a position where this is really our focus and our reality going forward, and we wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. You have been a great asset.
Thank you, sir.
Said you are a man of, I have little interaction. I can see you have very high standards, and we really, really thank you. Ms. Lowry?
Is there anything you want to say to introduce yourself?
I'm excited to be a part of the LCS family and help forward in the tradition that has been the direction. And I have some big shoes to fill. He is
Yeah.
a very smart man.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
The motion to adjourn? Good. Good to go. Thank you.